questions. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium, numerologist, healer, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there is always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Psychic Hour. It's great to see you today. Hello. We have the interview series for Friday the 8th, and we have Dr. Kelly Schutz in the house. Hello, Jessica. Hello, everybody coming on in. So we're going to be going into the world of the paranormal, whether it's research, experience, account, and also talking about just the world in general of energy. And so there's many crossovers. People have experiences through, let's say, directly the paranormal or within their own spiritual development, when they are connecting to spirit or psychic energy or healing energy. And it's always great to see from different angles how people have experienced their own spiritual awakening or energy understanding, whatever spectrum it's on. So I'm really excited to have the more paranormal side of discussion today. And if you have questions regarding or like to share your own experiences as we are talking, please drop down that and away we'll go with the natural discussion. So the topic of the day, hello, Jennifer. The topic of the day as we're going into it is about vibration and intention. And so we talk about that a lot. You know, what is your intention? And we start to really feel the energy and become the energy, whether we're conscious about it or not. But I wanted to open up the sphere and really to understand if someone matches your vibration and matches your intention. Because a lot of times when we're cultivating friendships or relationships, even business partnerships, or just chance of the moment encounters, the reason why we vibe, no joke, with people is because we vibrate on a similar frequency. Well, there's going to be many different frequencies that we hold within our aura. And, you know, are we really sturdy within that? Are we really embodied in that character? Are we consistent in that? Are we newly discovering that? Or when we meet somebody, do they stimulate a part of us where they say, whether it's directly or subconsciously, would you like to be like this? Would you like to be like this? And so when we connect to people, sometimes we are stimulated by their vibration and they either raise or lower our frequency. And as the relationship progresses, we have to kind of understand, are we really on the same wavelength? Are we really operating from the same place? Because in an instant or in a week or a month or even a couple of years, you could be operating from a very similar frequency until, you know, one of you goes, I wanted this, or actually I've been this type of person. But when I'm around you, I'm, you know, excited for this viewpoint, or you made me think about things differently. And we really all have to be in charge of our own vibration, or to help to have the conversations and consciousness to understand when we're with other people, what they help bring out within us for the better, or for maybe, you know, learning and challenging experiences. And when we do have the people who are of our same intent or similar intent or similar vibration, do they want to learn and grow with us? Do they want to learn? Everybody wants to grow. And everybody does, I feel, want to learn on various levels. But do they want to learn in a way where you grow together? Do they want to learn in a way where you see things in a way that is supportive of one another, or you function in a way that is supportive of one another? Hello, Aspen. Hello. And there has to be that subconscious and conscious acknowledgement. Not everything can be known. Not everything has to be, I need to know my energy. I need to know my intention. There's many things that we're coming into, and there's many things that are very natural when we're attracted to business partnerships, friendships, relationships. There's many things that just naturally happen and naturally enact, and it shows very with ease of the similarity for some of the energies that you share or that you cultivate with synergy. I think that's quite beautiful. It shouldn't always be like this psychological, philosophical debunking. It's really about honoring the natural energy. But when things do get wonky, there has to be the learning and there has to be the growth, because both of you will be uncomfortable if there's something a little wonky, either one person first or then the other. And if that wonkiness isn't put light to and helped to be transformed, it festers, it festers. And we really do have to understand what energies we are allowing to continue within our life, or that we are continuing to make sure we nurture. So at the end of the day, it should be really quite natural, but we're all human, and to really honor and to put effort into what's going on around me, and who is with me in my energy field, because we all carry people within our energy fields. And some of us have had really strong experiences with that. A classic one is always, who's going to call before you pick up the phone, or you could be texting somebody and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I was just thinking about them when I picked up the text. There's these more common ones that kind of flex that muscle. And I think they're quite fantastic. They're actually very surprising every time they happen. It's like, whoa, that's so cool. It's one we more so can relate to. But sometimes, when someone's sick that you love and you care for, when they're hurting, or when they're happy and something good happened. So there's many different spectrums of realizing we all are truly connected and we do influence each other's energy. So with the people that you are around, really understand, why are you connected to them, and what vibration did you operate on when you met them, and what vibration are you operating on now that they are in your life, whether close or afar, and what kind of intention do you just want to live within your life. And as you radiate that and are at peace with that, maybe those people come closer and maybe those people drift off. Just let it naturally be. Let it naturally just vibrate once you put your intention into motion, and see what happens, and see with the people that you love if they want to learn and come with you. Okay? See if you can spark something that creates more natural flow and understanding. For whatever reason, this topic of the day came up. I hope that it stimulated something within you. And it's really kind of like pure inspiration that things should come to you. A mixture of planning and inspiration. That's what I always say. So I know that there was an intention I put out into the universe to find more lovely people of different viewpoints to come onto the show. And that's how I met Dr. Kelly Schutz. And so I want to bring her in just a moment, in just a second here. So let's set the space for that. And again, hello, everybody coming on in. So let's bring in Dr. Kelly. Hello. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello,
Hi.
Dr. Kelly. Welcome
Hi.
to the show. I want to give you a warm introduction for everybody just learning about you, or if they already know you. So Dr. Kelly Schutz is no stranger to experiencing unseen energy. As a former college professor and litigation paralegal, she remains a lifelong citizen researcher, contributor, and learner of life, focused on the unexplained. Dr. Schutz is an author of 11 paranormal books and has been featured in publications such as Paranormality, Haunted, and Paranormal Underground Magazine. A career highlight was when she was invited to interview the entire cast of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, featured on the History Channel just last year. Currently, Kelly gives her talents as host and producer on the TV talk show Disembodied Voices, part of PARAFlixx, as well as the podcast series Encounters, as heard on ParaFlixx Radio Network and various platforms. Welcome, Dr. Kelly.
Hi, welcome everybody. Hi, Kelly. It's so weird saying Kelly, you know, because it's Kelly Day. So
it is. Well, hey, right? There's just the more the merrier.
Yeah.
The more the merrier. So I met you during the Ghost Conference up in Oregon, and you were just so passionate about like connecting to people and sharing your experiences with energy, with the paranormal. So like I saw that beaming off of you right away. So straight off the top, when you were young, did you have any interest in this stuff, or did it find you?
Well, actually, I think I think it was kind of both ways, actually. My experiences began when I was around 3, 4, 5 years old. And what was happening was I was having dreams. But they weren't necessarily the nicest dreams. I mean, we're talking kind of warning dreams is what we'd call it. Plane crashes, civil unrest, stuff like that. And then as a young child, you know, back in my day, it was black and white TV, box TVs, if anybody knows what those things look like anymore. But I would go out and I would watch the television, and then all of a sudden what I saw on TV was exactly what I saw in my dream. But as a 4 or 5-year-old, you sit there and you look at it and you shake your head, and then you're like, huh, that's kind of weird. But you don't think much more of it. But when I started having repetition of that, and it went on and on and on, then all of a sudden I started to wonder, and I've told a lot of people this, if I wasn't the one causing the incident on the television, because I dream it first and then I would see it. So as time went on, I would say that as a young child, I was always very anxious and always nervous, like a little nervous Nelly. I don't know why, but maybe something was starting to awaken in me at that time that I didn't realize. And you'll usually pass it off as a child as something else, rather than, most people don't come out and say, yeah, gee, you know, because the paranormal and all that, that's something we never talked about back in my day. We just did not. You didn't bring it up. It was all religion. You went to church. You had your spirituality. It was angels. It was demons, you know, stuff like that. It wasn't anything beyond anything like that. And so I grew into it all of a sudden when I started having experiences. After school, we would go and be babysat, basically, at my grandparents' house. And I started having really unusual sensations in there. I just didn't like being in there. Now, these are loving grandparents. So you think right off the bat, oh, I'm in a loving house. It should be a loving structure, the whole 10 yards. But it wasn't that way at all. When they would leave and go somewhere, it's like then the house became alive with an energy that felt so unsettling that my anxiety grew higher. Okay. And now I'm sweating at the age of 9 years old to, oh my goodness, I was over there till age 16, you know, because of waiting for my mother to get off work and bring us home. We lived out in the country. And so anyway, there was points where I couldn't stand being in that house alone when my grandparents were gone. And so I would go sit out on the porch. And I don't know if anyone can relate to being in a place where you could feel this energy at a level where it would actually drive you out of the situation. But that, I wasn't quite sure what was going on. I was told it was my anxiety. I was told it was kind of all in my head. I was told you're there alone. So because you're there alone, you're making stuff up in your head, or you're dreaming this stuff up. But it was, I first started coming into my awakening, I would say around age 12, 13, 14 in that house when I was sleeping on the couch. I thought I heard my grandparents come home, and sure, and it sounded like there was a little party going on in the kitchen. It was very noisy and very chatty. And so I got up off the couch and I started walking towards the kitchen. And I said to myself, how do they get home without me hearing the door open and close? And as I stood in the frame of the door to the kitchen, it was nobody in there, dead silent. All of a sudden, all that chatty stuff went completely silent. Excuse me. And then all of a sudden, I really got nervous, and I said, I don't want to be in here anymore. There is something going on in here. And that's when I started actually staying out on the porch, waiting for my mother to come pick me up, you know, that type of thing. Even in freezing cold, you wouldn't see me go in that house. I absolutely hated going in that house. And Kelly, I've had a lot of experiences in that house that, as I look back and as I wrote about these experiences, to this day, I just finally have been connecting the dots as life has gone on. So there was a very hostile energy in that house. Someone had actually died in that house. I found an article. There's a fire back in the late 1800s when that house was built that happened in the kitchen. And that's the woman, the owner, who was widowed, or I don't know, she was by herself. She was there by herself in that home. She passed away in the fire. And so there's a lot of weird things that happened that actually brought me to the conclusion of my intuition, my senses, being there in my 30s and trying to overcome my fear of being inside the house by myself again, and things happening where I was now physically attacked by whatever the negative force was that was in that house. And I suspect it was probably the woman that died in the fire. But lots of things happening. But that gives you kind of a bird's eye view as to where it didn't necessarily change my thinking right off the bat. Keep in mind, I was kept being told that it's anxiety, it's all in your head, you know, you're not sensing this. But I have been diagnosed as an HSP, which means highly sensitive person. There is actually a diagnosis for that. And I am and that coupled with being an empath. And I just recently, through my research I'm a citizen researcher, which means that I study myself. But I just learned of this within the last few years. And I thought, you know what, this is up my alley all the way. But there's been a lot of different things that have happened over my life, Kelly, that I finally am now connecting the dots.
Yes. When we are highly sensitive individuals, or like empaths or sensitives, it's very much a reality for someone to walk in a room and get lit up, depending on what happened in that room. And so there's histories in houses, or sometimes there's histories just within the current household that sometimes is not shared beyond what goes on between that family or those people. And so it's very much a real thing to have all these things lit up. And if no one else experiences that, they're going to be like, oh, well, it's in your head. Yes, I'm experiencing a part of it in my mind, but it's not just all in my head. It's like I'm projecting it. I'm broadcasting what's already here. So
can I jump in? Kelly, can I jump in a second on that?
Sure, and then I'll come on around right after.
Okay, that sounds good. You're very right on that. So I asked my grandparents at one point, is this house haunted? And they're very diehard Catholic, and I don't want to say laughed it off. They just disregarded and said, no, this house is not haunted. But when you live in a house, except the houses I live in, but when you live in a house and you don't go down that avenue of thinking, you're not going to believe that your house is ever haunted. That was denied at the point that I finally, around maybe age 13, 14, 15, started asking questions actually about the house and whether or not there was something in there. And again, it's going to be denied, or it's because of religious teachings, upbringings, backgrounds, just the way people are programmed, you know, in their own way when they start, you know, aging and doing their types of things that they do. We start establishing our little foundation of how we think, and we stick with that until proven otherwise. So, all right, Kelly, swing back around.
No. We got some good comments we'll go back to here in a little bit. So yes, a lot of people will just, we're all doing it, even though Kelly, we're both Kellys. It's so funny to say it, but even though Dr. Kelly, like, you have opened up your mind to what you've been taught. There are so many things out there where we are constantly opening our minds. So we really do have to have compassion, because it's just like, you can't really expand your perception beyond what you can't see. Maybe somebody can open you up, but it has to be because you're curious and you want to, as they tell you things, or, you know, there's something within you that has that ready to just that open up. So yeah, I really do think that we have to be around people who encourage belief within us, even if they don't necessarily agree with us. They acknowledge, like, hey, well, you know, I do care about what you have to say.
I can jump in there too, because the thing is I'm going to take the baton away from you, and I'm going to run with it now. I'm going to, yeah, right. I know. So you hit on something that is absolutely right. Unless you are around individuals that are willing to expand their own thinking, or maybe go out of the safety box once in a while to take some risks. What you just brought up leads us now into when I first learned that I was telepathic. And it was at the age of, let's see, I was in my 30s. And I didn't know I was telepathic until I had my experience photographing images of what I believe are not tricksters, but my family relatives who built this 100+ year old property out in rural Minnesota. And I was there because a tornado had gone through the day before, and I went there to make sure that the house was okay, because there was a lot of trees around, and didn't know structurally. And my grandparents had been deceased. The house was empty. And so out of curiosity, I went there to make sure that everything was okay. And as I was walking around the property taking pictures, this sensation came over me that was quite unusual. And I just ignored it. Once again, when you start freaking yourself out or getting scared because you get this sensation that something is with you or whatever, but you can't necessarily put your finger on it. I photographed in a screen window. It's different than a plate window. It's a screen. A young girl and an older man in the window, which I didn't see at the time. But they're looking right at me, and I have pictures of this in my book and all this. But what was really strange about it is I went to get the film developed because I was going to go back. I lived in another state at the time. It just so happens I was in Minnesota at the time this all happened. And I noticed on the picture that there was something in the upper window that looked like a ball that was kind of sitting in the corner. And I thought, well, how on earth did a ball get up in that window upstairs? Because the house was completely locked up. Okay, so now I'm questioning, what am I looking at? That actually inspired me to get my first laptop. And then on my laptop, I was able to enlarge the picture. And so I look back and I feel like there's things that have happened to me that forced me to do different things, like get a laptop and all that, look at the picture. And then I discovered very clearly a little gal and an older man. They're both looking right at me. And she had this little grimace on her face, and he's looking at me like, who's that? And I said, oh my goodness. And so I went back to the property. I stood on the lawn, I stared at the window, and I said, if you have a message for me, please tell me, what do I need to know? And what came to me in a very odd way, it wasn't male, it wasn't necessarily female, it wasn't child. It was just it was a knowing that I can't explain. It was, the genealogy is wrong. And I thought, the genealogy is wrong. And yep, the little girl that was in the window, after I matched her up with some photographs that I had of her around that age, matched, perfect match. And I had her name wrong. But it was so strange because I'm kind of the genealogist in the family. And it's so strange because it was like, when that came over me, I mean, I wish you could have seen my face. I just stood there going, the genealogy is wrong? Did I just hear that right? But that was my first time. Actually, I may have been more telepathic before then, but that was the first time I actually came to realize that I could hear something I could not see, and something was talking to me that I could not see. It was very interesting, but I wanted to add another piece to this of what you said in your introduction before I came on. Telepathy. Some of us have it. I had it. From that point on, it became strong. And so it seems like there's certain individuals that I connect with more than others. And maybe most of you that are listening to this and watching this program might be able to relate to that. But I used to connect at the age of 29 with a boyfriend that I had from the Netherlands. And I could tell when he was going to call me on the phone. I could tell you when he sent me a letter. I could tell you all of this. Well, what's real interesting about this story is that he and I are still friends to this day, 38 years later. We've been in touch the whole time. And in this last year, when I went to see him, by the way, I'm married, happily married with my husband, but we went to see him for a day. And I cannot explain the energy that I re-experienced. Some people say you broke open your old wounds and all these emotions of pain came out. And we just kind of went through a whole year now of trying to readjust ourselves back to just being friends and not questioning. But I can tell every time he thinks about me, when he wants to write me or whatever the case may be. And I have a way of verifying it to know that it's not just something in my head. So I was very interested in your beginning because I thought, well, I'm living it right now. But I also agree with you too about one thing that you said. I agree. If somebody wants to continue that relationship or that energy within the relationship, and by the way, my ex is stubborn. He has not been willing to let go. And I don't know why. People say we're probably twin flames or soulmates, but I'm very happily married with another man, by the way, who has the same birth date as my ex-boyfriend. It's very strange. My life is...
that stuff can happen. Yeah.
It's crazy.
There's a reason sometimes why that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I also have a friend of 42 years right now that I'm on the slide with because I've been so involved in having my experiences, and things are happening from an energy standpoint to me, which keeps changing the way I think about energy. Some people will experience this with their friends. They don't get it. They haven't had experiences. They think that you're a little bit out there, and it doesn't matter if I'm on the cover of a magazine, which I am. It doesn't matter. I just got done being filmed in a documentary. It doesn't matter if I'm in a movie. It doesn't matter. And so now I'm on the fence about wondering if this relationship is sustainable going beyond this point, unless we just never talk about my life, which involves paranormal or spirituality or anything like that. So it's a tough world right now for me, because I have to make some decisions about whether or not we just came to the end of our rope. But anyway, that's just I wanted to touch on your introduction there, because it's like, yep, you're singing my tune today. So
Well, it's in the ethers. That's what I always say. It's in the ethers. And I do think, like sensitive people, not everyone's telepath. I believe that anyone can develop any gift. It's just we have like predominant gifts and we have predominant natural things that find us a little stronger than others, right? But I do think that most sensitive people have like the telepathy where, you can kind of, for whatever reason, just fall into that energy and go, well, I think that's kind of what's going on within that person. And so our energies combined together inspired the topic of the day. So it makes perfect sense that we're sharing energy. And that's really beautiful that you shared your heart. And I'm sure I know other people are going through something similar, who are tuning in, whether, live with us or later in the playback, because soul connections, they're really real. And we're all on each other's journey to ignite understanding and healing. And sometimes people have grown enough, whether it was you or whether it was him or whether, another person with like another situation. You came to a point within your development where you stimulated something within him or he stimulated something within you because you've accumulated different signatures throughout those years and years and years. And yeah, I think that sometimes it's a slam dunk in certain departments and other times it's not a complete slam dunk. And you have to see if someone's willing to see you and accept you for who you are and vice versa versus the misunderstandings or the uncomfortability. And sometimes we can't get there and sometimes we can. And, some people are worth it to understand, can we get there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it takes two to make a relationship, no matter which way you want to look at it, even if it's a bad relationship. And so there does come a point where you have to ask yourself the question, how much more energy am I going to expend on I'm going to say how our relationship feels versus how this person makes me feel. And the reason why I say that is because it's hard to have a relationship. Now, this friend of mine of 42 years, doesn't believe in this stuff at all. Now, not to say that I need to be around people that believe in this stuff, but when you're having a general conversation and you're just saying nonchalantly, yeah, I'm doing, 11 interviews for my TV show and this and that, because I have a TV show and everything, and they don't want to hear 1 second of it, then you begin to struggle in what you're going to figure out, how you're going to manage to keep that interest in each other going. And yes, there's other aspects that we have interests in. Of course we do. But if I'm silenced with just my general life and I can't even say 5 minutes of what I'm doing for the week because someone just doesn't believe in anything of that sort, it gets a little trying. So, but interesting enough, the gentleman, my ex, from the Netherlands, he took an interest all of a sudden, more of an interest in what I was doing because he wasn't willing to give up the relationship. Now, I don't think he necessarily believes in a lot of the stuff that I've gone through. Not that I haven't gone through it. He just, this different aspects of spirituality and paranormal, and of course a little bit of extraterrestrial. Now we can throw that one into the pan, but he's intrigued by it. He's not repulsed by it. He's not even opinionated about it. He still wants to have my relationship, and he is willing to engage in a conversation, even if it's 5 minutes regarding it. And so, yeah, that just kind of shows you a little bit about where you draw the line in your life, or which path do you want to start taking with the people that still remain in your life. So, yeah.
I think like it's a very insightful look into what we all deal with in various capacities. Like sometimes it's a very intimate or close or very close friendship. And it really kicks up a lot of feelings of, does this work? Does this not work, in various capacities? And sometimes it's like, let's say it's people close to us, but we don't have a very close connection with them. It could be like family. Like, you know, they don't, even though, let's say you are very driven and very successful and you work hard and they know that this is important to you, they just don't care to learn about it. They change the subject. There's really no interest in supporting. And I think a lot of people go through that. And it's something that's very, very difficult. And when people are closer to us within our lives, they do have to accept us. And we learn to accept ourselves further because of that. And that's a hard lesson, because a lot of this work, usually a person comes into it because they come from a very different perspective. And so a lot of times people are ostracized more so than others because they look at the world differently. They feel differently. They think differently. And so then on another level, when we embrace that, we have family and friends that just go like, I'm not really into anything that you're about, other than I happen to like you as a person. And you feel like, well, how do I develop a relationship with that person, even though they're giving me positivity? Like, they don't even accept me fully. How do you feel about that?
Well, the thing is, you know, I've been studying this within myself and the relationships that, especially with people that have had a lot, and I've had a lot of paranormal experiences that have been unexplained, and actually this energy comes to me. I don't necessarily always go seeking or finding it because it can be real draining, but I have had a lot of different things present itself to me. And the only thing that I can say about that is a person doesn't necessarily have to accept somebody 100%. They really don't. But the challenge is whether or not a person stays silent and is, you know, they don't have to agree. They don't have to accept, because I know that my friend hasn't had these experiences. I know that. I mean, good grief. Okay, so we go and we look at the other things, you know, that we do well together and we don't talk about and all that. But when they shut you down after you try to give them just 5 minutes of what you've done for the week, because that's your job, that's your life, then all of a sudden you start to wonder, if they're shutting me down here, what's the next thing they're going to shut me down on? So it just depends on your limits, how far you're going to go with it. If you're able to just not talk about certain things and then just only go into the commonalities and stick with that, or if it gets to be a little bit too trying, and if it gets to that point, then you have to decide whether the relationship still goes forward or not, because energy does change. And when I used to teach college, I used to tell my students all the time, people change every 7 years, whether you like it or not. I have changed every 7 years, literally like clockwork. You know, for the longest time, didn't realize it until I learned about this. And when I was going through my programs and stuff like that, I thought, well, you know what? That makes sense. I see myself changing. But there's some people, Kelly, that do not want to change. They feel good in their bubble. They want to stay in their bubble. And that's okay if they want to stay in their bubble. Then don't criticize me for wanting to go outside my bubble. And that's the thing. That's the piece. That's the piece right there. Just, you know, you don't have to accept me fully, but don't criticize what I do just because I've taken another step to just kind of explore and have some risks in my life. That's kind of the gist of it. Yeah. So
I think that's very eloquently said. You know, we're out here living, and sometimes it seems to another person as a huge risk. It could be a huge risk for us too. But right. we're living, we're seeing what life means to us rather than staying in our box. And it's just, how are we being supported? Our friends and our family don't always support us in the way that would be most conducive to us feeling just comfortable in their presence. And maybe they feel the same way for us. But like you talked about growing up, like when you were young and in your teens, and they didn't believe you. And a lot of times people, even around us, don't believe in some of these things, and it's becoming a lot more normalized. Don't you feel though, like these discussions are becoming more normalized, so it is a little easier now? But how do you find it still for yourself?
Well, the thing is that I am grateful, even though I don't agree with some of the programming on television regarding some of these topics, because they do present things to bring in an audience and keep an audience. When you actually live this in your life, there's a very different perspective sometimes as to what you're really experiencing. And that stuff can't always be shown on TV because you know what I'm saying is, if they show it on TV the way we really experience it, it'll bore people to death, and then they won't have ratings, and then the show goes off anyway. So there's a lot of politics regarding what we see. But I'll tell you, I was silenced when I silenced myself for the sake of my job. I did not talk about this for years and years and years when I was teaching. Had a lot of situations in my classroom, which eventually had to be addressed because I knew I couldn't ignore them anymore. Things were happening in there. My students were reacting to things that were happening in there. And you know, after a while, you feel like, my gosh, why me? That's the one question that I started asking. Why me? Why am I the chosen one? Why am I having these experiences now? What I've learned is that the more experiences that I've had and I become open to, the more open and the more experiences I continue to have. And so I've had involvement, started spiritual, then it went to, I think some paranormal's going on here. And then just within the last couple of years, I firmly believe I have had a few extraterrestrial visitations, and with solid evidence to support that, including a handprint that you'll see it right here. It's on this one here. That's the handprint that showed up on my body. And the thing is, that was still energy that was placed upon my body by something. But you know, I tried to get down to the bottom of that, and I've had many different theories about who put that handprint on my body. But the thing is, it wasn't my handprint. And so energy can't always be seen. Maybe that's a good thing, depending on what kind of energy is in front of us. But yeah, I think the dialogue is opening up a little bit more. I think people are coming forward more. I can tell you one thing, Kelly, I have no problem filling my time slots on my TV show. I thought I would in the beginning. I can do 2 seasons with the snap of a finger in 2 days, because people feel comfortable enough to talk, just like with you, comfortable enough to now start sharing their experiences and taking a risk and bringing it forward without judgment, without criticism, but maybe a little questioning once in a while, but without judgment and without criticism. And so more people are coming forward. That's at least from my end of the world that I can tell.
I think so. Yes, definitely. I do think so. And it's a good thing. So I welcome that openness within people more and more. If I can, whether it's for extraterrestrial or paranormal, or like, you know, feeling the energy of lands or houses, when you stepped forward within your life. So you're going into becoming a teen, a young adult, then you get into, you become
college years.
Yeah.
Young adults.
Yeah. So college.
Mm-hmm.
How did that start then filtering into your life, even though you kind of moved forward, but you were aware you had these abilities and experiences?
Well,
you talked about
in
the classroom.
Yeah, what's really interesting here is that when I went off to college at about the age of 18, 19, 20, I got distracted with college. So anything paranormal or anything like that went out the door, was still remained as though that was maybe anxiety or something weird that happened, but it was put on the shelf. So when this stuff started up again, actually, it was when I photographed those what I believe to be, I hope they weren't tricksters, but my relatives that telepathically spoke to me through that screen window. And then I did a boo-boo. And so what happened then was, I said, if I can hear what's going on here, who else can I hear? And then I did the greatest novice mistake of all. I went and I started going to a lot of haunted bed and breakfasts, or proclaimed ones, which they were, by the way. And I started to test my energy with other energies. And this was in the United States. Okay, so now I'm immersing myself and getting more and more experiences. And yes, my goodness, and they were pretty subtle there for a while, but they were obvious until I made the decision to go to Europe and say, I wonder if their apparitions or the energy over there is any different than the energies I'm experiencing over here in the US. And oh my goodness sake. Let's just say that I was so terrified with my experience in this one 900-year-old building that I stayed in as a bed and breakfast that I swore off any ghost, I call it searching, for 3 years. Didn't want to go anywhere near it. Didn't want to touch. What happened in my room is that when my husband threw the holy water, and I could feel the heaviness of the energy in the room when we entered, and there was a process. You had to ask permission to enter the room, and they weren't going to put me in the most haunted. They put me in the second most haunted. The mirror started cycling around in front of me, and that was no joke. And it was not a carnival act or anything. I have no idea what it was when he threw that holy water. And then all bets were off at that point. And I went into such a panic attack after that, because I was big girl from the US. I had to see if the ghosts of Europe were any different or nicer or kinder or meaner than what we experienced over here. And I got a good chapter out of it. Believe me, that's a good chapter in my book. But energy in general is very real. Energy, when you pass away, I could do a whole episode on what can happen to energies when someone passes away. But it's very real, and it's some of it stays around, and some of it is nice, and some of it's not so nice, and it just depends on where you're at, and there are a lot of factors that go into the type of experience that you could potentially have. But Kelly, have you ever felt that heavy energy, kind of yucky feeling, that type of thing? That's how that room felt when I walked into it. It's just sickly. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to stay in here all night. Oh my, I don't know if I can make it. I want to hurl. That's how heavy it was. Have you ever had a situation like that?
I've had situations when I've walked into spaces. Luckily, I haven't had to stay there for extended periods, but I just go, oh yeah, I wouldn't choose to be here. No, thank you. I experienced that a lot with when I was looking for houses years ago. You know, you're house hunting, so you're going into you're going into 20, 50 different houses. What's this feel like? What's the architecture? And just in some of the rooms, it would just feel so yucky. And it was because of sometimes it was the people's energy, and sometimes it was just, you know, past energy for different reasons. But I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. But if I ever felt really, really creeped out, I think I would be like, how can we fix this? But you could be in a situation where that comes out at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you just have to stay there for the rest of the night. So, yeah. Energy can be very uncomfortable. It can be very, very uncomfortable. I feel like spiritually we can enact our protection more so than enacting our physical protection always. So sometimes the real world can freak me out more so than the spiritual world, but everyone has different beliefs on that. But yes, I do think there are some very, very archaic and interesting energies that do exist on Earth, and they're more so, let's say, welcomed or cultivated in different cultures and in different areas, like something very like airy-fairy, I guess. I'm kind of curious on your perspective. You know, like in Ireland, they believe, not everyone does, but they believe in fairies, and that is an elemental that is referenced on the land. They talk and they talk about gnomes, and they might talk about little other woodland creatures. And people actually see them because they're just like, yes, it exists, and it harbors that energy to be there. And there's a lot of things in the United States that are unique to the United States, and they're not believed. So, you know, it's not cultivated that experience enough. But when you were in Europe or other places, what did you start seeing, whether it was fun or creepy, that was very different than here?
Well, first of all, I've interviewed people who have had experiences with these fairies in, I believe, Scotland and or Ireland. So, and apparently they're very real. There's also these little short, they look like really ugly, kind of leprechaunish looking kind of things that are very violent. And those are over in I think they're also over in Ireland. When we were in Ireland, I did not do any of the what I call the forest investigations, because it was a little bit too creepy for me, because I am a beacon. And as a beacon, everything is attracted to me. It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to make its way towards me, energy or not, and it's going to make itself known. The creepiest thing, though, probably the one thing that I could share with you real quickly is after the cycling mirror incident, we went to another bed and breakfast, which was out in the country in Wales. And it was just so happens that on this property, the owner of the past had 80 hunting dogs, and he buried all of his hunting dogs on the property, and they all had their own separate tombstone. So that was kind of like interesting in and of itself, right? But at night when we went to sleep, and I had incidences also in that property, when we were laying there in bed, I said to myself, maybe I can get a good night's sleep tonight, because I won't have what went on, you know, in the property before. And then something started crawling on top of my legs, and it felt like a dog, you know, those the feet are, you know, and it was thump, 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 and it was coming toward me. And I just started kicking. I just thought, you know what, I'm done. And, you know, I just started kicking. And I said, just get out, whatever you are, get out of here. But that was very real. Some people that might be watching the show right now may have experiences with their deceased animal and doing the same routine, cats crawling on top their legs, or the sensation of that where they can actually feel them. This is very real, and this really does happen. But when that happened to me over there, I wasn't sure what was crawling on me, but I suspect it was one of the deceased hunting dogs of the past, because there were so many buried on that property. And some of this energy just hangs around, and some of it just kind of transforms and goes into something else. So that was the creepiest. I've had a lot of experiences, but over there, those were the two most prominent that, you know, I'll never, ever forget, no matter how long I live. So
I do think, like, some things when we can't wrap our head around it, and it could be because it's like a being that we have no recollection of, right? But then when we have something that maybe creeps us out, but we're like, I think it's a dog, we can start to wrap our head around it, because, you know, some people, they might have experienced that crawling, and they're like, oh my goodness, what is that? And imagine, like, you know, everything goes into your head of what it could be, but like you had the history connected to, like, these are probably dogs, and it feels like a dog. And I do, you know, I've had some experiences where, like, just to relate, creepy things do happen, but I go, oh, I think it's this. And, you know, hi, like, I just, like, I'll treat them like hi, and see ya. And then I've had things happen with beings that do not seem very human at all. And I'm just like, hi, what's up? And you kind of communicate, and you just ultimately, at least in my perspective, I'm just like, are you here for a reason that's open-ended and positive, or are you here for something that I can't figure out? It doesn't feel exactly so great. I'm not even going to go into that energy. I'm going to have to ask you to leave right now, because it's chaotic, And I'm not trying to control it, but if something's chaotic, I want to control my energy at least. So I go, hey, I'm going to ask you to sit back and I'm going to go somewhere else. And if you're in my space, I'm going to ask you to leave. So, but you know, people have different roles here in life, and like you're like a beacon to find things, and you have interest to debunk things. So we're all going to experience different energies or opening of energies depending on what our intention for knocking on that door is. And I guess the final thing I want to say, because I'm curious of what you believe within this too, Dr. Kelly, there are many things that we can't see, right? And we feel, we know, we experience on different levels, and maybe it's better that we don't see it. Maybe, yeah, I can definitely relate to on that. But I do think that there's many things that we do see, but it's in the lens of our own perception. And so we think we're seeing things sometimes, but really, like, someone could, again, think it's a monster, but really you knew it was a dog. You knew it was a dog.
Yeah, intuitively.
They start to go, oh, that's the energy of a monster.
Intuitively, I knew it was a dog.
Yes.
I did not feel it was a monster. If it were a monster, but I associated it with being a dog, oh my goodness, can you imagine the reaction I would have had if the lens of my eyes actually saw what was crawling on top of me, or what caused the mirror to cycle around? Can you imagine? I have said many times, and very openly, because I've had so many experiences, including a number of extraterrestrial visitations, by the way, which, by the way, have been friendly to me, healing, not hurtful. And so that's a whole nother show.
I would love to talk about that with you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's a doozer. And but the thing is I have said openly, I do not want to see you if you are in my presence. I just can't bear to see you. But I did see something in my dream, and it scared me to death. And I woke up sweating, and I woke up with my heart pounding out of my chest. And I'm telling you, I screamed out loud, and I did. Don't ever do that to me again. Do not ever show yourself like that to me again. And I have never had that since. But after I started analyzing what I saw and talking to a number of psychics and asking, what do you think that was that showed up in my dream? It actually turned out to be a mantis being disguised as a humanoid. But the bottom line is, mantis beings are healers. And what it did is it came over here. Take a look at that picture. They took where my handprint was. I had COVID pneumonia so badly that you need a spirometer to suck it out. Okay. You can't just, or antibiotics don't work. And the minute that handprint went over that same area, believe it or not, it's gone. And it's not like it went overnight. It took 8 months, but I'm just saying it's gone now. So I believe it was a form of healing. They were showing me who put the handprint on my body. By the way, it was upside down, elongated fingers, and a crooked one, which was even more crazy. But the thing is that the bottom line is, it wasn't my hand. I don't know if it was an old woman. I firmly believe it had something more extraterrestrial to it, but I still don't ever want to see it ever again. So
yeah. I mean, you know, it's not always going to be a pretty sight. I can only imagine. But for people who are just getting to know, like, about aliens or star seeds, yeah, like the mantis people are a race, or the mantis beings are a race that a lot of people really do identify with and have had many experiences with. So that's very fascinating. And to think about it, like, just on Earth, we have all these microorganisms, and we have ants, and we have insects, and when we like blow them up on, like, you know, a microscope of what they actually look like, it's actually rather terrifying. So imagine you have an insect being that is the size of us or bigger. Oh my goodness, that is formidable. That is but you were clear enough to see something very like, okay, here I am, like, no pretense about it. So that, I mean, that there's bravery in meeting something not so aesthetic.
And so let me make one further comment about that. Its eyes were like a mantis. It had a black COVID mask over its face.
Oh, interesting.
And that is how, through the number of psychics I talked to, especially one, two predicted it was alien, that this handprint was. That is how we deducted that it was a mantis being, COVID mask over the COVID area. And so when you start to do the deduction or the whatever, you know, to bring it back to try to figure out what were these elements, and it was trying to look like a humanoid, by the way.
Okay.
It was, but when it turned around, it was walking away, it turned around, it looked at me, and then here were the eyes and here was the mask. That's the point I woke up. I freaked out. I could hardly believe what I just saw. It was so scary. It even behind a mask, it needed a mask. Let's put it to that.
Okay. So I can understand that, though. I mean, yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, how can I put it? Like, it made sense that there was an attempt for soothing. It made sense that there was a visual of, hey, this is for COVID. Let me give you the sign for COVID and let me help you. So it's very interesting. Like, as you tell a story, I go, oh, okay. Like, I can totally understand why if you saw those things. Yeah. I think it's fascinating. Yeah.
Well, and it came after a year and a half.
That you were healed. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to say it came after a year and a half of begging the universe to please tell me who put the handprint on my body. So it didn't happen right away. It came later on, but whatever was left in here, because it takes a very long time for COVID pneumonia to get out, if it ever gets out, there's nothing in there anymore. So the thing is yeah, but that's right, Kelly. It's kind of like, you just never know what you're dealing with, but it just depends on where people's toleration level is. Mine, even though I'm into paranormal and all this stuff, I don't always want to go into a spooky building, and I don't always want to go down in my basement either, by the way. You know, I freaked out on that. And so, you know, but the thing is even people within the paranormal field or studying this stuff, there are times when we bring stuff home with us, or we have you know, attachments or everything like that. So there's a lot of stuff that you just don't want to immerse yourself in something that you might, I don't use the word regret, you might regret down the line. I don't regret the life that I lead because it's actually pretty pleasant. That's what I want to say. But, you know, you have to be careful what you wish for. And that's kind of the theme of my show. You know, be careful. I wished to see a ghost at the age of 14. And now I have a life of living with ghosts and everything else because I'm a lighthouse and they all want to come have a tea party with me. So, yeah.
I agree, Dr. Kelly. You have to be mindful of what you intend. And I think a lot of energy persists within the universe that we use on an everyday basis. But since we've been conditioned so much to say, oh, well, that's just how the world works, we don't understand the power we have to call things in, or the power that we have in sharing energy. And so, you know, we talk about these stories like, you know, the beans in the hotel, or, you know, extraterrestrial connections and healings, or, you know, a dog in spirit. And we're like, oh my gosh, I can connect. But like, I really have the belief, and tell me what you think, Dr. Kelly, like within psychically or, you know, spiritually, soul to soul connection with just here on earth with other humans, just on this plane, we bring them home with us too. And that's why they persist in our aura. And it's just like, we have to be careful of what we let into our aura and what we let into our energy, because the living haunt us just like the dead do.
Yeah, they do. And I can add one thing to that too. Be careful what you let into your grief, because we just had a very bad tragedy that happened in my family. My sister's husband, he committed suicide. And yeah, but the thing is here's what's interesting about all this. So that happened on January 1st. And my sister went through, she's very grief stricken still. And she went through a drive-through at a fast food. And the gentleman at the window said to her, I'm sorry, wasn't there I could have sworn there's another person sitting in your car with you. And she's like, nope, it's just me. No, I could swear there was another. I must be I'm hallucinating. Well, I'm trying to teach her now a little bit about what happens when you go through the grieving process, and the fact that earthbound spirits can remain, especially depending on whether they want to leave or not, or maybe he doesn't realize that he's passed on, kind of thing. But I am a firm believer, and I told her this, that was him sitting in the back seat of your car. And it just so happens the person at the window saw him. So it can happen. And you can light up like a Christmas tree. There are people that talk to people that, believe it or not, have been deceased for a long time, and they're having a conversation with someone, and then they find out that they've been dead for God knows how long. I just interviewed a gentleman a year ago. He talked to a guy for literally a half hour, and then he wanted to get his address, and the person informed him, well, I don't know how I can give you an address. He's been dead for 9 years. He says, that's impossible. I just got done talking to him. So energy, although I thought energy can only light up for like maybe 5 seconds, no, it sounds to me like energy can be lit up like a human being, or energy can be lit up for a half hour, or a quick ride through a drive-through or whatever. These are the mysteries. These are the unexplained things that many of us that are really involved in this field kind of like to dig into a little bit. We may never have the answers. We may never know how it all occurs, but I will tell you from my end of it, it's very fascinating, and energy is fascinating. So
energy is very fascinating. And hello, everybody still coming on in. Hello. And those accounts, they're very real. And right, there's anomalies, and energy normally doesn't stay, grounded for such a long period of time. But I've heard mediums where part of the reason they found out they were a medium is because they were having conversations with people that they didn't realize weren't there, and no one else could see them. Mm-hmm. And they were like, okay, how is this a thing? And so I really think, and so what do you think, Dr. Kelly? A lot of the people that have those occurrences, some of them are very natural mediums, mm-hmm. and they're able to help ground that energy for it to be seen or to cultivate, or they're able to spot it out while it's happening. Mm-hmm. It's just, yeah, it's one of their gifts. But I believe in everything that you've mentioned. I really have, through other people that I really trust and believe, who are very credible within their work. They've shared similar things, yeah, as well as my own experiences. So I love hearing what you're sharing. I really do.
Yeah. The one thing I want to note too is that depending on the type of energy, I can feel more than I can see. It took a camera to help me to see what I could not see. To this day, if they weren't tricksters, let's just keep putting that one in there. I don't think they were. I really think that they were my relatives. But some people can see, the eyes we can't always see everything. But I can tell you, for me, I can usually feel it. So, and hear it and sense it.
And yes, however way it comes to us, it is fascinating. It is truly fascinating. The show goes by just like that, like so quick. Can you believe it? It feels like I've been talking to you for 10 minutes. I always try to make sure that people know where to reach you if they want to, let's say, schedule something that you're a part of, or learn more about what you're sharing with others within your research or your books. So what is the best place for people to come find you on multiple platforms?
Okay, well, I have a few books, several, but the last ones that I have are the most popular on Amazon. If you look behind me, you're going to see the covers of my last 2 of 3 that are very popular. So you can go to Amazon if you want to read something about some of these stories I've shared. I have a website, www.paranormaluniversalpress.com, and my whole life is right there. I mean, anything you want to know about me, and it's all there. And also I have a TV show on PARAFlixx. It is a streaming network. And I do have, and Kelly's going to be on, well, at least I'm going to interview you. I can't remember what I slotted you for, but you're going to be interviewed very shortly here next week. And that's www.paraflixx.com. And I have, we're at season 11 right now. I've already scheduled out to season 13. So we've got a lot to go here, but there's a lot of people you can watch. And I have a lot of different topics from these individuals of all kinds of things that I think you would be interested in hearing. I do have a podcast as well, Paranormal Encounters podcast series. And the easiest way to get to that is through my website. So just go there and you'll be able to click on Podomatic. It'll bring you right in. And I think I'm at 226 or something like that shows right now with all kinds of topics. And Kelly, you will be a very unique topic once we get you on next week. So.
Oh, I'm going to have fun just like we've had fun here.
Yeah.
It continues. I always give the guests the last word too, whether it's something that pops into your head, like inspirationally, or you have a favorite saying or a piece of wisdom that you like to share with others. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, the only thing that I can really say is the theme of my whole life and my books and my shows, and be careful what you wish for. Make sure you understand why you might want to do paranormal searching, or why you want to learn more about something or experience something else, because when it does come to you, sometimes you can't turn it off. And I can't turn it off right now. I'm just saying, but what I've experienced hasn't been, except for a couple frightening ones, but I don't think they intended to hurt me. It's been very interesting. The way I think about things has been changing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my roots have gone away either. So spiritual, paranormal, extraterrestrial, outerworldly, whatever. Just know that energy definitely takes many forms, and it's very real.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly, for being on the show today. And please check out her books and go to her podcasts and her TV show to see all the things that she's doing. She's so busy and so evolving. So once again, thank you. I will see everybody next week for the interview series and for the reading show. So with that said, please go with love, light, and luck. And don't forget to live, everybody. Thank you again, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. See you, everyone.
See ya.